Hey everyone, Nick here from Catastrophic, and today we're going to service my Peerless 100 differential. Alright, so this differential or axle came on a Dune Cycle that I purchased, and I knew absolutely nothing about this differential until I purchased this thing. So of course I went online and found out everything I could find out, and honestly it wasn't a whole lot. There's a parts list that breaks it down, but I didn't even know what this thing was called, so I didn't know where to start at. Like go-kart axle, you know, go-kart differential. I didn't know what it was called. Luckily I met somebody who knew a whole lot about the Dune Cycles and could tell me exactly what this was and pointed me in the right direction. And of course I found out it's the Peerless 100 differential. And you know, he made sure to let me know that you have to have a certain kind of grease. I'll tell you about that here in a little bit. But today we're going to tear this thing down, put new bearings on it, clean it up, and put new grease in it, put it back together. So let's get started. Alright, so when servicing this differential, the first thing you're going to want to do is pull off these nuts. There's 4 bolts that go through this center of the differential housing here. So it's called a differential carrier or a differential carrier housing. You can call it whatever you want, but what you're going to want to do is pull the 4 nuts off the sprocket over here first. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, once you get your 4 nuts off, the sprocket will freely slide off. Okay? Now of course it's still on the differential. You can't just take it all the way off. Next you're going to want to remove all 4 bolts that go through the differential housings. Now keep in mind this housing on the left side is threaded. So this is like a bolt. You cannot just pull this out. So don't start beating on this bolt with a hammer. You're going to tear it up. Make sure you pull it out with a wrench. All 4 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up and get these bolts out. Get my gloves on. Bite! Alright. Now I had one of these bolts were broke inside of mine. And these bolts are a 5/16 by 18 by 4. Again, 5/16 by 18 by 4 bolts. Now, once you take your differential apart, you got one half and then the other half. Inside, you are going to have your drive pin, your pinion gear, and a thrust washer. There's going to be one on each side. Drive pin, thrust gear, or pinion gear, and thrust washer. Alright, so that's in the middle. Sits just like this. Now, next thing you're going to want to do is clean all the old grease out of both of the halves. Get them looking really good new. I use brake cleaner, of course. And then you got a snap ring here to take off. Once you get the snap ring off, it starts just falling apart. You're going to have a bevel gear. It's the same thing. Looks just like your pinion gear, but this one is called a bevel gear. So you got a pinion gear and a bevel gear. And this one actually has flat sides, so you can't even mix them up. If I pull these off and go to put them back on later, I'm going to know which one goes on the drive pin because it's got a circle in it. These ones do not. But anyway, you've got your bevel gear, another thrust washer, and then you have your housing differential carrier. Housing or differential carrier, whichever you want to call it. We're going to set that over there. Alright, then you got a flange for your bearing. Then you got your bearing, live axle bearing. Another flange. You got your brake. Then you got your little moon keyway for your brake. Another flange for your bearing. We're going to go ahead and pull these set screws off the bearing here. Take the bearing off. So that's your second bearing. Oh, sorry, I forgot about this other snap ring here for the brake. We're going to take that off and put it inside the brake so I know which one goes for it. Now I'm going to remove the second bearing and the second flange. And that is completely broke down one half of this axle. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other side. Let you watch this again. Let's pull this right there in the middle. Alright, that's the first thing you got. Snap ring right in the middle. Now I had trouble, one of my snap rings was broke inside of my diff. And I had trouble finding a replacement snap ring that was the same thickness. So what I did was I found some that was half as thick and I put two on there. It works perfect. Some people might yell at me for it, but it's all I could do. Alright, once again, once you pull your snap ring off, you've got your bevel gear, thrust washer, differential housing. Let's move that grease back here. Then you got your sprocket, flange for your bearing, first bearing. Oh, I tightened this one down. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Let me loosen this one back up. Then I'll pull the bearing off. Second flange. Then again, your brake, your little moon key. Then you're going to take off your second snap ring for your. This holds your brake drum aligned and in place. Pull that second snap ring off for the brake drum. I'm going to set it inside there. Then you got your other flange and the other bearing. This is the outer bearing. Alright, we'll put that there and your other flange. And again, completely tore down the other half of the axle. Alright, now let's talk about the Peerless transmission grease. Now, this is more or less a bentonite grease, and it's kind of hard to find. I only found it on eBay and some other online stores. I found it a little cheaper than eBay, but I got it in. You can buy it however you want to. So we're going to put this back together, fill this back up with some bentonite grease or a Peerless differential oil, gear oil, grease, whatever you want to call it. And we'll get it put back together. And I'll get you zoomed in so you can see a little closer all the parts and what I'm working with, okay? Alright, so we're going to get this Dune Cycle differential put back together. I've got you zoomed in so you can pretty much see the table set up and all the little parts. So I'm going to get the grease out of the way for now. Alright, so I'm going to take the half that has the sprocket. We're going to start with this side first. And first thing you want to put on here is going to be your bearing flange. Then you're going to want to put the live axle bearing on with the set screw first. And I actually have a little bit of spot on the axle. I can tell exactly where this bearing was at to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little bit and tighten it down so I'm not fighting it moving around while I'm trying to hang the axle. I probably will have to loosen it back up. But I'm going to put the second flange on. So we've got the first flange, the bearing, second flange. Alright. Next, I'm going to go ahead and drop down the set, the blah 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 blah. Get this off here. Alright. Next, I'm going to go ahead with the snap ring for the brake drum. We'll get that on there. Just slide it down. Oh, I got these all backwards. Hold on. Alright, there we go. Slide that down till you get it in the groove. Then you're going to want to put your little half moon key in. Slide that baby right down on there like so. Then you're going to put your flange for your second bearing. Again, your second bearing, and this one goes on with the Allen set screw first also. Go back with your second flange. Alright, once you get all this on there, go ahead and put your housing or differential carrier back on. Now you're going to need thrust washer, and then once again your bevel gear. Alright, once your bevel gear goes on, oh, and I've actually forgot the sprocket. This is the sprocket side, so let's go ahead and pull your bevel gear and your thrust washer back out, and your half. We didn't go too far. Slide on your sprocket, then the carrier housing or differential housing, thrust washer, bevel gear. Again, you got your snap rings. Let me set that down. And there should only be one, but like I said, I couldn't find the correct thickness, so I'm going back with two that are thinner than the original. But it's all I could find, and I'm not going to keep buying different snap rings trying to find the correct ones. Perfect. Alright, got half put back together. We're halfway on the home stretch. Just grab this one, throw it back together. Once again, flange for your live axle bearing. Live axle bearing with the set screw down. Let's not get your gloves in there. Putting it right back where it was. Right there. Go ahead and tighten it down. Throw your other flange on there. Then you've got your snap ring for your brake drum. Put it on this way. Half moon key. Brake drum. There we go. Next, you're going to put another bearing flange on there. Your bearing set screws down, another bearing flange. Differential housing. Thrust washer. Bevel gear. Another snap ring. This one's the right thickness, so I only got to use one of them. There we go. It's on there now. We're put back together, all but the drive pin and the pinion gears and the thrust washers. And again, you got your drive pin, your pinion gear, and these thrust washers here. And they sit right on the little housing there. Alright, so your drive pin is going to sit right down in the middle there, like so. When you spin it, you should see both of them spin like so. And then you just put her all back together. Just line up your bolt holes. There's two bolt holes that go on both sides of this carrier where this sits inside of the housing. Just line up them bolt holes, put it all back together, and you're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and put some grease in here since I've got my grease in. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm not going to kill it. Put some on this carrier also. Alright, let's drop our drive pin in there. There she goes. Let's throw some gear oil on this baby. got me some gear oil on there. Now I'm going to sandwich it. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'll show you this way. Putting it together just like this, but I'm standing it up. So I stand it up like so, and make sure my differential housings are perfectly lined up. And I start installing my 5/16 bolts like so. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and finish installing these bolts on the differential here. We appreciate you guys watching the Peerless 100 differential service. Keep in mind, I'm a professional of being an amateur. So if I can do it, you can do it. I knew nothing about this differential when I started. And I still really don't know nothing about this differential other than what I told you that I learned off the internet. So yep, see you guys next time. Y'all have a good day. I'm also going to go with some brand new washers and lock nuts to hold my sprocket on.